The following is a presentation of the ForceCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the ForceCenter podcast feed, and this is one of our deep dives. What are we going to dive deep into? Well, the rich, fulfilling pool of beautiful, shining water that is Vision Season 2, Part 2. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
Kerplunk, I'm Ken Napzok. Hey.
I just finished watching this not too long before we sat down to record, so spoilers right away. I am feeling the cleansing high of the beauty of that final episode in Vision Seasons 2. Au's song. Oof, very beautiful, very cleansing.
Love that. Yeah, I can't wait to get to that. Can't wait to get to the oldies of course. It's been an interesting experience with this second volume for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are just catching up, if you're just finding ForceCenter, and this is the first episode you're listening to, we love doing these deep dives. We talk about everything that is fun, the aesthetics, all that great stuff. We also like to talk about the big ideas, as well as some favorite moments of action, comedy, and just great, beautiful visuals and visions. We had a part 1 of Vision Season 2 that we put out a week ago. We really want to be able to let these breathe a little bit and get to the details of all of them. So now we're going to be discussing the back half of the season, the second 5. But first, we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. For the last time, for now, we are going to recommend Battle Scars by Sam Meggs. We've been recommending it for a while. We did get a chance to read it a couple weeks back, and we did a deep dive into that book. Lots of great and interesting stuff. And we discovered that we were all wearing the same medallion around here spiritually as Grease-dritis. Good old open shirt, grumpy Grease-dritis. So if you've read the book or and you want to listen to that podcast, go for it. If you have not experienced the book and want to listen, you can download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. We're also doing a segment called Ask, where we ask things. Ken?
We do. This title started because Joseph and I were raised regionally here in America, and just, I don't know how we took in life. Well, we're afraid to ask for help sometimes. We're afraid to ask for you to check out things we do. And so this is beyond just advertising certain parts of our brand. It's looking to the community to build us stronger. So it's a leap of faith for us as well. But we're asking that you consider checking out our Patreon page at patreon.com/ForceCenter. We have a current goal over there. We're going to do another exclusive Star Wars Ranked Live, exclusive to the live Patreon audience, and then released to the public later. To do so, we're going to make that possible when we hit $2,200 a month. We're very close to making that goal. The last one was our favorite sequel trilogy scenes. So if you want to consider supporting and helping us reach that goal, head over to patreon.com/ForceCenter. Also there right now is our Indiana Jones and the Perilous podcast series. As of right now, 3 episodes are up. We're through Temple of Doom. We have an overall, a Raiders look, a Temple of Doom look, and the rest of the films on the way. This lead up to Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's been a lot of fun, and I really want you all to check that out. And that it's all there at patreon.com/ForceCenter.
Yeah, that is great. A very good, clear ask, Ken, and an honest, emotional one.
It's still hard for me.
It is still hard. It's really hard. As people might know, as I'm recording this, I'm running a Kickstarter campaign, and that's one big ask. And I know it can be stressful for lots of people to ask for help, but it is really fighting through some programming for me, and I know it is for you. So glad to have all of the wonderful support, all of the wonderful answers to our asks, in particular with people joining us on the Patreon. Thank you all so much to everybody who has done that. All right, let's dive into Vision Season 2, Part 2. Ken, I meant to put this in the show notes, but I forgot. I always like checking in about kind of how and when you watch these. What kind of emotional state? Did you watch them all in a bunch? Did you spread them out? How did your viewing experience go for this back half of the season?
ended up watching them all in one day, but then doing the notes version a little bit later, just before we recorded to keep it all fresh. And I think it's that's why I do like talking about how we taking this in and then how we're talking about it. I had much like the first half of this review where we did the 4 episodes, we did the last 5. I had a sigh, blank bleep. I got to watch that, right? Like homework assignment vibe. I forgot. We're doing that Wednesday. Joseph and I got to talk. I've got to watch these. I can't believe I forgot. I was also traveling over the weekend. So I approached it with it was a grumpy energy. It was a grumpy energy. And Visions, both volumes are loved by so many people. I think they're very important. We'll talk about it at the end. But I have this like, all right, yeah, it's maybe not, not for me as much as other people. I have that kind of dismissive attitude, and it's unfortunate. And I'll tell you, that all went away real quick. And I've been loving this batch and feeling it. And I finally got around to watching the filmmaker focus stuff, which is on the Disney Plus extras, where you spend about 9 to 10 minutes with the filmmakers. I really recommend people do that after they watch these episodes, because you get a real you feel the passion and you feel the love of Star Wars and the love of story and art, and that made my second viewing for the notes version just even more fulfilling. So from grumpy to feeling love for these in one night.
Oh, that is great. That is great. And I haven't got a chance to watch the filmmaker focus, because I didn't know they were there. But I'm thrilled to know it, because I think some of the power of these is they are wonderful pieces of art, of text that you can analyze with no other information. But because they are lots of different people's perspectives on Star Wars, some of what is enjoyable about it for me is like, oh, and I want to understand more of that perspective of why is this the part of Star Wars you gravitated to? How might you process the same theme in a different way because of what your culture has gone through and what your culture celebrates? That stuff is one of the most rewarding parts of watching Vision. So I'm excited to get a little bit more time with the creators. For myself, is same thing. I absolutely love the first season of Visions and have a handful of them, like I was saying before, that I rewatch when I'm just like, I don't have much time, but I got to eat breakfast. I got 20 minutes. And I don't want to accidentally start a Clone Wars rewatch by just watching Lightsaber Lost again. So I'll just watch an episode of Visions. And there's so many in this second season that I think I'm going to be like, yeah, I just want to watch that art. I just want to see that. I just want to feel that emotion. So I absolutely love them, but I've been busy. We've been busy with ForceCenter, and keeping up with Indiana Jones means, watching an extra movie a week, all these great things. Wonderful. Not a problem. But it can make me step away just a tiny bit from the magic.
Yeah.
To the, okay, great. I have my analytical hat on, and I have half an hour and I must analyze this one. And I watched the first one in this back half, Journey to the Darkhead, and enjoyed the hell out of it. We'll talk about it, but had a little bit of that, like, I could feel that I was not one with the Force.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had like 2 hours set aside, and I was just like, I am not one with the Force. I appreciated the messages in this. I'm going to take a deep breath and come back to this later in the evening when I am one with the Force, because I've been looking forward to the next one, The Spy Dancer, since it was announced. So this back half of the season actually did take me on a journey that is similar to many of the themes of take a deep breath, focus, connect. And I was just like, I'm not bringing this. I've been looking forward to Spy Dancer for, I don't know how a year since it was announced. I don't know. I don't remember. 6 months. And I just took a deep breath and just watched that one, and we'll talk about it. I think favorite for both of us. And then I watched several more last night. I watched several more this morning. It was great. But I really got the experience of just, this isn't about analysis. This is just about love. That my wife came home late last night after a dance rehearsal, and it was so fun because we haven't even had a time to finish Visions season 1. We haven't even had time to watch Bad Batch together. So she hasn't seen Bad Batch. She hasn't had time to stay up on everything. And when she got home, I was like, do you have just 20 minutes to watch some Star Wars? And she's like, yeah, I need to eat. And I was like, I'm not going to tell you anything about this. I just want you to see this. And it was so great to also see it through her eyes. And it really reconnected me to the love of what Visions is capable of. These bite-sized, beautiful, different takes on Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well said. That's what we got here. And yeah, again, I think it's important to set where we're coming from or where we walked in, because that's all of our experiences out there. Hard day at work, kids at school causing problems. Who knows? You get home, you want to watch Star Wars, and sometimes it doesn't hit you the right way, or you don't think you like it because all the outside influences, and you must drop to your knees like Qui-Gon and focus. Find your home.
I've always thought of Qui-Gon meditating, because he does close his eyes, but it is funny to imagine that he's watching a show on the laser gate there in the in the feed generator. He's just watching his stories. It looks like meditation, but he's thinking of his favorite hollow soap opera. That's what's going on. All right, let's dive into discussing these, because there's much to discuss. First up is Episode 5, Journey to the Dark Head, by Studio Mir, South Korea, directed by Park Hyung-jun, written by Chung Sarong. What was your overall reaction to this one, Ken?
The thing that jumped out to me in this one is the feel of the South Korean design. Just culture, a lot of those aspects came in here, and that's one of the big things Visions wants to do, right? It is just like, what does Star Wars mean to you, but also put yourself into Star Wars, and I really saw that one jumped out. And the designs, I love the story. We're getting the story, but when I keep saying this thing of, I'm glad Visions isn't canon. I remove that pressure or just the need to worry about it, right? Just let the story go. But I still look at some of the designs in all of these and go, man, but I'd love to see that in canon Star Wars, meaning just to a larger audience, live action, big screen. Like, I don't think Visions is here to recruit talent to the roster, but that wouldn't be a bad byproduct. If you just get some of these other, there's some of the visuals in this, the ring, the statues, everything about, even the concept of the Force oracles, things that are different. And that's kind of a victory, for this whole series, but particularly for this one, that jumped out more than anything else. And I just love this one had a big epic lore world building kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, there were some great visuals in this one, and I love the ideas, but I think it was that energy of the world building in the literal physical movement that I gravitated to the most. And I know exactly what you mean, of like the ones like this that are particularly dynamic in the movement, in like the way they show energy of that trailing Sith scorpion tail weapon, just some of the, like, even the kind of great fun motion lines behind a ship. It's not like I literally want live action Star Wars to be animated with motion lines, although that would be cool. But it gets you excited to see these ideas that are kind of turned up to 11 in animation form. So I really loved the visual style. I loved how dynamic it was. I love how much the visual style emphasized scale. Is something I really liked in Screecher's Reach. But this one really did it too. And I think it tied into kind of the big picture ideas that there was a lot of seeing how tiny people were compared to what they were dealing with, to make it feel maybe futile, but also, no, you're actually connected to all that nature, even though you're just a little tiny part of it. Was beautiful visually, and I think tied into the ideas. And I also think there's such an emphasis on nature in the ideas of this one, the rain bringing the visions, that kind of thing, that having those huge, beautiful establishing shots of the environment. A lot of the episodes of Visions do that, but this one, it felt extra powerful to see these kind of big, beautiful, brooding vistas.
Yeah, there's some pretty powerful in just that. Well, there's a couple, but just pulling back and seeing the scope of the statues up there, the light and the dark and everything about it, and just the scale, like you said. I had my breath taken away, and it wasn't just the breakfast burrito. It was just like, oh wow,
Was that beautiful, or am I choking on a
I mean,
breakfast burrito?
all they call them be, yeah.
Yeah. This is not a criticism. This is a truth. For me, in the Visions episodes, there are some that are dealing with conflicts and beats that I feel like we're getting to see a lot in Star Wars. And it does not mean that I don't like them, but they don't hit me as hard as some of these episodes of Visions that find plot-wise, vision-wise, an entirely different way into the Star Wars themes.
Yeah.
So this one and one of the other ones, I enjoyed it. It is not a criticism. Beautiful, but it's dark side, light side, lightsabers. A risk of falling to the dark side. All great stuff, but this is one where I feel like it is the different cultural take that gives it power to me, because some of the other ideas we've seen a lot in Star Wars recently.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean, exactly what you're saying, and this is kind of the thing of, if you're just kind of skating through these, like, I'll watch Visions, some of the themes seem familiar because they're universal, right? But also they're so key to Star Wars. I'm with you on that, and I think, again, that's probably why I gravitated to the visuals. But there's some definitely interesting themes and stuff at stake. I know.
Yeah, so let's dive into it. And again, the caveat, this is not I didn't like this one. It's that I gravitated more to others. Anyway, so let's talk about the ideas at stake in Journey to the Dark Head. What did you feel it was about? What did you think was at stake?
Well, the balance, the ebb and flow, but really deep down was, that time-honored Star Wars tradition of fear and hope. But I saw it as, there's two things going on. The Jedi Toll. God, I wrote down the name.
Yeah, Toul. Toll.
Yep, there you go. I made sure to do that this time. Trying to recover from that trauma, witnessing the death of his master, and how fear and trauma will then dominate his path. So there's a little bit of like, am I a Jedi? Why am I a Jedi? What do I do with that? Or on the other side, you have a Force Oracle, Aura turn pilot, and that is questioned at one point. Even there's a joke, but about automatic flight controls, but like, you're not a real pilot, and who you are and what's your place in the story, and how that not being sure about that. Not being sure about where you go next, and how to kind of just let things kind of flow and go where you need to go, could lead to certain kind of fear and certain kind of losses of hope. So I pulled that out of it there. He's told the Jedi will fall, and that feeds into hopeless, because what does it even matter? What does it even matter when the Sith are going to come for us all anyway? Why am I even here? Why am I Jedi? And I can't go get vengeance? Like, I love some of those questions there. Different view on fear.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. And I think I should modify what I said. I think some of the surface level stuff of a fallen master, a Jedi who might fall to the dark side, some, pilot Jedi banter, some of that stuff, I feel like those storytelling beats we've seen before in these. But the themes, they did get into some really interesting, almost answering some discussions that I think come up a lot in Star Wars sort of philosophical storytelling. And one is this part that you're talking about of your fate is not sealed. There is so much in Star Wars where characters are told this is your destiny, period. Vader and Palpatine tell Luke what is going to happen to him, period. How it's going to end up. Where in contrast, Yoda and Obi-Wan tell him he has the responsibility to face a challenge. He can't avoid that, but the outcome of the challenge is open. But you can't avoid the challenge. Whereas the Darksiders are telling you, nope, it's done. Your fate is sealed. Lots of great discussion we've had about the sequel trilogy of Kylo, Ben Solo, when he is consumed by darkness, says awful things to Rey about her lack of choice. So does Palpatine. So I love that this story is dealing pretty directly with two characters who are on different life paths, but they find themselves entwined with the same sort of challenge of pushing back on your fate being sealed. Ara was kind of told that this is your exact way of life. We just analyze these visions, these prophecies, and we write them down. That's your way of life. And she pushed back on her fate. Willing to destroy her home, it seemed, a sacred place.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there was some amount of belief that, well, you know what? We're at war, and the Jedi are at war with the Sith, and we've seen this happen sometimes when a Padawan is too young when their master gets murdered in front of them. Well, we're just counting the days,
Yeah.
until they fall to the dark side. For poor Tool, seems like he was just like on this train where he's like, "Yep, my fate is sealed. I'm going to fall to the dark side." And I feel like they both broke through this sense that their fate is sealed. And in great classic Star Wars way, they didn't give in to anger and hate. They stopped the Sith, and they did it specifically through teamwork and sacrifice by coming together, not quite realizing that they were going through the same trial, the same similar traumas, and connecting, working together. And the Jedi Tool, in order to stop the Sith, being willing to sacrifice himself and then being rescued by her was all great. Beautiful Star Wars storytelling.
Yeah, but pulling off from that thread of nothing is fixed and light and dark will always coexist. And we heard that here. We've heard that a lot. I love there was a little angle on it that just kind of, I don't know, grabbed me at the right time of, light and dark always coexisting and always being there. They phrase it as hope and despair. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy because when we lean into fear, lean into our darker sides or just our simple anxieties, which sometimes, again, you can't avoid. I think that's also one of the things you're kind of highlighting is the challenge will always be there. What you do with it and how you react is up to you. And I hate that sounds like some, carnival Barker philosophy, but you know what I mean? And the idea being that hope is always present, and it's so easy to focus on the despair. So easy to see that first. And so easy to question your place in it. Question, why should I even try? Why should I do this? Or even overlooking where you are and how where you are sometimes is what's important, right? So yes, there is light, and yes, there is dark. And I think we want to fight that dark. We don't want to remove that dark, but that the hope is always present if you look for it. And I just thought that came through real nice.
Yeah, no, I didn't write down that particular line of dialogue, but I really like that. Like, yes, there is a huge ominous wave coming, and we can't stop the wave. We will have to ride the wave out, but that wave contains both despair and hope. It was such a great idea. Totally agree with you. I think this was also kind of answering a nuance of Star Wars philosophy debate of this was a really beautiful visually depiction of you can't cut off the head of the dark side. The dark side is forever. It's natural. It's a part of things. I loved that it was sort of the yin and yang image idea within the heads as the energy of the two mix. So she couldn't just cut off the one. So the literal plot of this was you can't cut off the head of the dark side. You can't end the dark side, but you sure can, and I think should cut off the head of one Sith. And I think sometimes I've heard the fan discussion of like, well, wasn't the Force in balance when there are hundreds of Jedi and hundreds of Sith? Because we're counting numbers. And those are the Jedi and the Sith are people who act on the Force. And to me, the story of the Sith, and there's interviews with Lucas, talking to the Clone Wars team, I believe, writing team about this. The dark side is always going to be there. Pain and sorrow and death and challenges, those are always going to be there. The natural part of existence and the cycles of life. The Sith choose to accelerate those things, rob a people of hope, joy, family, connection, and spread the dark side to an unnatural extent. And I thought this was a great way to deal with that. It wasn't vengeance or anger that Tool was feeling. He just did what he needed to do to stop somebody who was creating great pain and sorrow by accelerating the dark side beyond its natural state to consuming everything.
Yeah, this well said, and I'm always looking for ways to explain this, right? Because I am very much a ain't no great Jedi T-shirt guy, right? But that sometimes that does not, that statement is not allowed for the nuance of there's transitions. You might be in the middle of things. Self-discovery is big with Star Wars, right? Like I'm there for that. And the way I look at it, the way I've tried to explain it to myself and then explain it to the world is, all right, that sequence on Ahch-To with Luke and Rey and the balance stuff. All right. So you see the little porg, eggs, and there's death, and that's sad. No one wants to see sad porgs with cracked eggs. But that's natural. The Sith come along, pick up the eggs, and chuck them into the ocean, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Sith do. So the Jedi are there to stand before that. So that's my dumb way of looking at it. This is the artistic way of looking at it, and a beautiful, revelation of, oh my gosh, a journey to the dark head. Well, there's light and dark in that particular statue, just like there's the other one, and how that's where you got to find yourself. And then how a Sith can look at it and be like, see, told you, we're always here. You might as well give into it. There's a great line of enjoy it.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. And I'll feed into what you're talking about here is, that we can't have you doing it. That is not balanced. The presence of Sith is not balanced.
Yeah. No, I think that all extremely well said. When I was working on the Star Wars counseling episode many years ago now, getting asked about this exact balance question, the porgs are a great way to talk about it, because they die. It's natural. It's sad. That's different than just a Sith just coming to that island and just going, porg's got to go.
Stomping.
That's not natural.
Yeah.
That's not natural. And that every time that you wonder about this, just imagine Sith just going, I'm going to take out these porgs. Not cool. Yeah. A hero must rise to stop that.
Yeah. And no Jedi's walking along going, well, occasionally I stomp eggs. I'm gray. I'm between. Sometimes I stomp eggs. Sometimes I save them. Yeah.
No. Save the eggs, which I think takes me to the final big theme of this episode to me, and it's all very intertwined. But I thought this one was really great about the importance of taking action, because I think the other part of this philosophical idea of, the light and the dark side exist, is not an excuse to go like, well, yeah, so some days you save people and other days when you're mad, you just use your car and run people over. What are you going to do? It's light and dark. They're both. You got to balance it. Like, no. Or just accept it. It's more the idea of apathy, right? Of, it's all, we're always going to be at war, so what's the point? Which is, brought up explicitly in this. And I think that was the most effective and powerful part of it, that Ara was, they're both main characters, but we start with Ara, so she's a little bit of our perspective character. And the first thing that she does is push back on the idea that in this sacred place with these amazing rains that create these prophecies of image, all we do is write them down. We don't act on them. So it immediately raises this question that's what it's about. That gets, I think, really underlined by her realization that she was the third figure in her own prophecy. Right. What a great way to tell, to share the idea of, it's so easy to feel like everything is so big and so out of our control. We're just being washed up in this story. The people who control the story are somewhere else, rather than being able to say, but my actions do matter. I am a part of the story. Realizing that she was an active figure in the prophecy is such a huge picture to add up, that things are not totally out of our control, even though it's natural that the light and the dark coexist. It is still an imperative to take action and try to fight for the light side. And the conversation they have about the wave and about hope and despair, I also thought was just really important to Star Wars conversations of this war has been going on forever. It's really hard to see the end of it. So it's hard to keep saying we are part of the story. We are not just passive observers. We can help end this war. We're going to be a part of fighting for the light side. And even when we get to the amazing victory of this war ending, someday there might be another one.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not mean that giving everything we have to stop this injustice is somehow wasted. This conversation comes up so much with people feeling like the victory of Return of the Jedi is hollow because the First Order returned, because Ben fell. And as always, I want to have respect for people who have different opinions, and I really understand that perspective from people who liked Star Wars as a fairy tale, more grounded in fantasy than hyper realism, and that's a happily ever after moment. And they go on and they have adventures, but they won. Period. I get wanting to approach it that way, but one of the reasons I like the sequels is I think it invests in this honesty of challenges re-emerge, and you got to fight to win the war, and then you need to fight as much as possible to try to stop another war from happening. But that doesn't mean that initial victory was empty. The analogy I've made before of like, if you're 20 years old and you almost get hit by a van and somebody pushes you out of the way, and then you live another 35 years and that same van almost hits you again, I think you think it was worthwhile that you were pushed out of the way and had years of happiness. And our heroes in the original trilogy created years of a better galaxy without direct Imperial oppression. And I think people who lived happy lives in those 35 years look at that Ewok dance party and say it was damn well worth it.
I love it when you and I try to break it down, explain it. Porg eggs, advance. And as if that when you were 20 and that you got pushed out of the way of that van, that there was no more vans. You know, the vans are gone. That threat's gone. We're done with the vans. Like, and I'm with you too. Like the Ewok dance party was wonderful. It fueled so much joy in my childhood. But the story has to continue. And I think we're just getting into sequel era conversations. But I think that's the lesson of this morality tale. It's about not just the 12-year-olds, but all of us. The continued journey with what. And I think you're absolutely right. That vision of the stone and her realizing it was her all along goes to who you are in the story. Your place is kind of where it is, right? And sometimes we can look to the binary sunset and dream of where we want to be, or sometimes we can overlook what's going on right in front of us because of what you're saying. The size, the scope, the scale of it is really overwhelming. So you can get lost in that. You can't, and again, she doesn't look at that stone and is like, oh, it's me, because life never does that, right? I'm waking up today, not sure what, am I heading in the right direction? You don't know. You just have to, choose hope over fear. And move forward. And that's just on podcasting for me. Now add it to world galaxy stakes. It's a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about it more because it comes up in some of the other shorts as well, that it is very easy to feel small and powerless and to lose hope. And I certainly wrestle with those things on a daily basis, and some days absolutely lose the battle. I had a couple days like that recently where I lost that battle. But it is worth fighting. And I think the dark side, Sith, Imperials, people who want to control all the power, all the resources, oppress people, want us as individuals feel like it is totally out of scale for us to do anything, that we are not part of the story, that there's no point in even trying. And I think that to me was ultimately my favorite thing about this. I don't think stopping that one Sith Lord, that probably put a tiny dent in the war, but it made a huge difference to those two people, to Ara and Tool, who came back together. And how many people are Ara and Tool going to go on to help? And how big of a difference is that one act going to echo out and make? If it never does anything, but it brought those two together, that was beautiful and worth it. That actions are worth it.
Yep. pushing that Sith van out of the way is good in that moment. Good for them and good for others down the line. I agree with you.
That's the big theme. The light side and the van side, they work together. And the vans are never going away. Did you have any specific favorite moments from this one? Action, comedy, a specific shot?
One of the funnier lines was when she's ours kind of talking to her, mumbling to herself, and Tool said, "I can hear you, and I'm not a kid." I love that kind of comedy when it's used sparingly, and I love that vibe there. So I think comedy wise, that was one of my favorite beats. I don't have any other comedy bits.
Yeah. I think for me, I loved that there was a swokes, the species that is Gra-Gra.
Gra-Gra. Yeah, great. Yes.
Our Beatles song, definitely written by Paul McCartney. Gra-Gra was a swokes that we can sing again. This was obviously not. I don't think it was Gra-Gra. Canon adjacent. Anyway, I loved seeing swokes because it's just fascinating throughout these shorts of like what alien design, sometimes relatively obscure within Star Wars, does some animation team, creative team go, we got to have one of those.
Yeah, love that.
We got to have a Gra-Gra, a swokes in here. And in the joke of like all the stuff that R is buying, like, are you going to blow up a planet? That was great.
Yeah, love that.
And then action wise, I loved the Sith Bachan. Apologies on the poor pronunciation. I love the weird Sith scorpion tail thing that obviously Tool was well aware of, but it almost felt like just hiding it and just total underhanded, awful kill of the master with the weird scorpion tail thing, but also kind of dark and brutal and cool.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. The design of the Sith Lord, both of the mask that's got the long kind of drapey portion there, which worked well with the aesthetic of the scorpion tail. The ship, great Sith ship. I thought that was a wonderful design. This is what I'm talking about. There's some of these aesthetics there, the red and blue, kind of lighting up the ring as they all comes together. I loved all that kind of stuff, and that's what I keep saying of like, this was great. I'm going to enjoy this again for that. But man, if that was to show up somewhere else, that kind of not a carbon copy, but just that kind of thought process into the designs, I'd love that kind of stuff.
A prophecy place like this would be that the design, the idea of it. I think that Filoni in particular has had real interest with things like the Bendu and the World Between Worlds to kind of pushing into these different kinds of spiritual force connected spaces, and I would love to see more of that.
I agree.
All right. Well, I think I've convinced myself to watch this one again and that I liked it even more than I thought. So shall we move on?
We shall.
Okay, let's move on then to the one that was, I think, both of our favorite. Definitely mine. Don't want to put words in your mouth, but our pre-recording conversation led me to think that you loved The Spy Dancer as well. This is by Studio La Cachette, directed by Julien Cheng, written by Julien Cheng and Gabriel d'Adramont. I'm making some guesses on some of those pronunciations. Again, my apologies if they are incorrect. Is this one of your favorites, and what was your overall reaction?
I'd call it my favorite. Hold Me Closer, Spy Dancer. Loved it. Love this one. And look, I have to admit, having just about a month ago spent 3 days in Paris following our time in London for Celebration, I'm still feeling the buzz from just Paris, the culture, the history. I'm one of those people that when I'm in a spot, I'm usually, when I go to bed, I'm on Wikipedia reading about where I am, finding an article or a YouTube video about where I am. I just a travel nerd like that, or just a history nerd like that. And so to take that, and this is also where I really recommend the filmmaker focus, because they had some wonderful shots around Paris, and I was like, hey, this thing, I stood there, and just dumb travel nerd stuff. So that vibe, but into the story of Nazi occupied France playing out here in a Star Wars version, and what that means to the people. And that was powerful for me. And I think I'm with you on, there's so many wonderful themes in Star Wars that emerge, and we see them kind of different versions of them. We see different interpretations of them. This one, we've seen this kind of rebellion before, but I don't know. It just felt a little extra pinch of power to me. And of all the Vision episodes to this point, including Volume 1, this is one that moved me the most. And I hadn't watched at this point, hadn't watched the episodes 7, 8, 9 from this batch, but that's kind of where I was at the end of this episode. Like, this is definitely the one that moved me.
Yeah, I really agree with all of that. I liked how much the aesthetic of Paris and the vision of Paris and this idea of this city of lights, this idea of city of culture being overrun by oppression, that connection to the true and, in the grand scheme of things, quite recent history of the French occupation by Nazis, and that contrast between what the art of the city stands for versus what the Nazis stood for and what the empire stands for. I think that true history made it hit even harder in terms of the big thematic ideas in the stakes. I think it made different levels of Star Wars resonate because of all of the different genres and ideas that Star Wars pulls from. There are a lot of just resistance dramas from the 30s and 40s that you can find threads of Star Wars in, not is directly maybe as this was Flash Gordon through the filter of Kurosawa, not as direct as some of the Star Wars influences, but you watch Casablanca and you feel like you're watching a Star Wars movie. And I think by this short played aesthetically and emotionally like a drama about Nazi resistance, like an old classic movie made about resisting the Nazis, which had this interesting resonance with where Star Wars comes from in terms of genre and concept. So there's some of those big picture things that I gravitated toward, but I think for me, a couple of things that made this just deeply powerful and deeply moving is I have wanted to see a story like this in Star Wars for a long time. We have, since the very first film, enjoyed the presence and the idea of performers in Star Wars. When we get questions over the years of what would your character be in Star Wars, some kind of performer that could maybe help fight the good fight. So to see a story, and I know we've had them in, I think EU, I'm sure has some, great stories of Tales of Jabba's Palace. I know features some entertainers and all sorts of things, but to see it on screen and to see it not just passing some information or trying to survive, but to have a performer dedicated to the idea of resistance. And we'll get into the themes of it. This is a story not just featuring a performer. This is a story about what it is to be a performer. So it hit me on a deep level as an old theater guy, watching a beautiful theater be demolished by the Empire. But also, my wife is a dancer. My sister-in-law is a dancer. I've spent a lot of time with dancers. That world, and the power of that movement was extremely powerful to me. And then the visual style. I don't know if they talked about it on the behind the scenes. Maybe we'll look at it. I love the animation style being like, well, what if some famous French painters literally moved? It reminded me a little bit of the work of Marc Chagall, who's Russian and French, and also did a lot of design for theater, some of the actual design. But the actual style of the literal animation, the shapes, the colors, and in particular, the kind of hard, chunky lines really remind me of Edgar Degas. Degas is famous for doing lots of paintings of dancers, ballerinas, but he has a couple of famous works of art that are very similar to this, where they are traditional paintings that are defined by shape and color, but then also a rarity, to introduce more lines. When I was in art school, I was told not to use lines. That's what illustrators do. That's what comic book artists do. So even back then, there was a lines are kiddie stuff. We do shapes and colors and light. That's what a serious artist does. And one of the exercises that I did in art school was I needed to pick out of a bunch of different images and practice recreating it. And one of them was Edgar Degas' artwork called Combing the Hair. And if anybody's curious, Google Edgar Degas combing the hair. Compare that look, that emotion to this animation. It is all these soft palettes of colors and shapes, but then these great hard lines that they don't cover everything. They don't outline everything like a comic book, but they have little explosions of thickness and then thin, and then they're gone entirely. And it's this interesting relationship between shape and color and line. And part of the reason, I apologize for going on and on, but it was one of the things that really deeply resonated with me, because that was a really changing experience to do that particular assignment. I can never see that image the same again. It's a really weird thing when you try to recreate an image that you feel connected to it, which is in no way to say that I'm an utter expert or as good of an artist as Degas. I'm not. But when I was watching this, I had this weird, like, I know this. I know the feeling of this. It took me a while to put my finger on it, but that's why.
Yeah. I spent 4 or 5 hours at the Louvre. I didn't hit the Degas wing. There's so much to see there, but I'm moved by your description of it and what it means. And it's definitely all in there. It's definitely this short is French to its core, right? Like this film. So I think you're on to something there on this painting come to life, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a painting of a dancer come to life to fight the empire. So let's talk about the ideas of it. What did you feel it was about? What was at stake for you?
I started here. You were touching on a little bit of art and expression being something to fight oppression and suppression, right? And that can be on a government level, military level, but also even on our own soul, in our own souls, right? When you suppress your own creativity, your own ideas, your own voice, that's a danger as well. So I think that's on the big level. And you're right. There's a lot of, they're drawn upon a lot of things. I didn't pick this up on myself exactly and specifically, but like, the famous example, Josephine Baker, who goes to Paris to find, this is the place that she can express herself. This is where her art can exist. And that's part of the French tradition and other dancers and some of the designs. But that being, art being this way to communicate ideas, this thing that you and I keep coming back to Star Wars for, and how those ideas, are part of it. And this is wanting to be a bigger part. You have the second dancer, was it Hetis?
Yeah.
Hetis, wanting to, I'm ready. But you kind of, you will get there, but you need to be where you are. You need to find yourself in these moments. All that kind of stuff is there. And I thought that was a great motif. And this is one of the weird connections. And you were talking about, I absolutely want something like this in again, I'll say it, canon Star Wars. And I hate keeping come back to that, but I think you all know what I mean by now. There's a great story in Robotech, that series I loved in the 80s. I always mention, Justin, in the third series, the New Generation series, there was a character, Lancer, who a male pilot who creates a performer named Yellow Dancer, a female singer, and goes around as that character to be part of the resistance, to both survive but also gather information and move about and gather. And that's a fascinating thing where you were literally using art as I don't want to say a weapon, but art as a tool to fight all this stuff, to fight oppression, fight suppression. And I thought that was just a big, beautiful theme.
Yeah, no, I really agree with you. I think you said some great things there. I think for me, one of the things that I connected to the most is this idea of sort of masks in truth and identity, and how much that is a part of the truth of being a performer. Art, at its best, is true as you can possibly make it. but the act of performing it, the act of sort of channeling that as a person, means a bit of a dividing of self, of like what you're sharing is true, but you also have like this backstage truth of this is who I am as a person. I apply the makeup, I rehearse, I have my team of people who help craft the art, and then through all of this artifice comes truth. But the artifice that the truth emanates out of is also necessary. You have to build it, you have to fabricate it, even down to people who are social media influencers. Talking on a podcast is we're always honest, but I'm also aware that, well, right now I'm trying to present, so I want to speak in a certain way, not say anything that isn't true, but I've got my microphone and I've got my notes, and I am prepared for this performance. It doesn't mean it isn't true, but there is still a buildup of what is needed to communicate this performance. So for me, just kind of starting it from that place of, we start with them in their great, super high up backstage.
Love that.
In this sort of, this is who we are as the team of artists, of theatricals who are going to make this spectacle, and there's going to be truth within this spectacle. But now we explode out onto stage, and there's an altered version. So some of the most moving and weird parts of a performer, particularly when you get the opportunity to perform in like a really big stage, and you're just a foot behind the curtain, and you step out, and reality has changed. It's an entirely different relationship. And again, it's not about being untrue. It's just about that truth of you're backstage, and then you step out in front of a huge audience. And if you're lucky enough to have a huge audience who's really invested in what you're doing and loves you, in one step, you're going between two different worlds. So that reality of being a performer, I think, is at the heart of this. And then there's so much else going on around it, that the performance is a mask to conceal rebel activity. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff with the stormtroopers. They are shown as kind of a rude and brutish in their behavior, and the one going in like, the liquor here is great. But they are stepping off their duties. Some of them are taking off their helmets. And even though they're being rude and brutish in the theater, there's this honesty that they're connecting with their humanity up to a point to watch art and be filled by the beauty of it. And then when everything breaks down, they are forced back from even this tiny bit of humanity of enjoying a drink, enjoying community, enjoying art and spectacle and talent, and they're forced back into masks on, guns out, rigid servants of the Empire.
That was one of my favorite moments it was to talk about, but you brought it up in a wonderful way, and it connects to the big theme of troopers having been so moved. Now, remember, this is stormtroopers in a Star Wars way, but we know what that word means in the real world. So being careful not to defend any actions in any real world sense, but they've been moved. Art has moved them. And then when they're told, or they're not even told, we should have shut this place down long ago, that we focus on those two. And there's that line of like, oh, okay, here we go. And they put the helmets back on. That was such a powerful moment. And why the fight for art and the fight for expression and the fight against suppression of knowledge and history is important. Because I feel if you're truly exposed, or you let yourself be exposed, and you take your mask off, you are moved, and you're moved to change, or you move to not be part of this kind of system. And that is why so many people fight to oppress it and suppress it. And I thought that was a real powerful moment, that they are moved beyond belief. Cannot believe it. And then orders. We got orders. Good soldiers follow orders. Put the helmets back on, guys. I thought it was a real powerful moment.
Yeah, I really agree with you. There's stuff in a lot of these shorts, not surprisingly, when you ask a lot of different cultures their take on Star Wars, which is a story about oppression, that a lot of these stories come back about how oppressive regimes need to erase culture because it risks creating connection. That was, to me, the other big part of this thematic idea of masks and truth, the nature of a performer, the nature of this performance has a hidden truth of rebel activity the stormtroopers. But then the big gut punch of the son. The son is being asked to erase the truth of who he is. He's being asked to wear a mask. It appears from that animation that his horns have been removed. I love that they don't overly hit you over the head, but he's got an image that we've seen in like comics and stuff of an Imperial with an eye patch. But we know that it is there to cover that he has two different colored eyes to cover this beauty, this diversity. And I love that they call that out, that the mother, Louis, has such hope that he could reconnect with his truth.
Yeah. There's a lot in this of hope. Hey, it's Star Wars. I've heard hopes in it. My T-shirts are available, kids, on my Patreon page. I don't know what you think about this. I put this thought of this particular film is not just about finding hope. It is about maintaining hope, which is sometimes so hard. And I thought that stuff at the end, I think she finds a new hope, pardon that, but finds a new hope with her son. But she had hope at one point. She joined this fight at one point. And now there's a lot of exhaustion. I just want to move on. The loss of purpose, loss of hope, and rediscovering it or maintaining it. Gosh, that's part of why we lose sometimes, right? Losing that. There's writers. I know a WGA member on the line right now, and every time we meet for this new job I have, I'm like, how's the vibe out there with the guild members? Because the first couple of days, there's energy, and they win by outlasting you. And how can you keep that hope going? And that's a lot of what's going on here too.
No, I 100% agree with that in that comparison, and it is one of the things that I like the most about it of the idea that you said of maintaining hope, that she's ready to leave. Louis is ready to be done, and it's also kind of wrestling with this is a drop in the bucket. We're gathering some data by following in low-level Imperials. Great. What are we really accomplishing? Ready to just get that ship built and be done. There's even, I think, kind of an element of hope of like, is your ship even going to work? But that conclusion is all about rekindling hope. They've been doing however long this has been going on. She said she lost her child 20 years ago. So maybe she's been doing this performance for almost 20 years, just throwing trackers and hoping it makes a difference in the long run after, 20 years of a drop in the bucket. But that conclusion is so much about hope that it's the last image. There's literally just the blinking possibility on that tracker that she will be able to reconnect with her son, that he will take the opportunity to take his mask off and see himself. And to me, it is not presented as a bittersweet conclusion. This is a story where the Empire violently demolishes a beautiful theater. The preservationist in me was wounded by just the thought of that building falling and everything that theater brought to the people there. And yet I ended this feeling like the heroes, the theatricals, the dancers won because there's that blinking possibility of hope.
Yeah, absolutely. You can burn these books and tear these buildings down, but art will live on. Art will find its way forward. I'm really with you on that. Absolutely. I especially last shots with their son and reveal that the image of him as a child with the two different colored eyes and one blocked. I love that. I took it as a win. Not that it's all wins and losses out there, kid, but it's a win.
But I wanted to go back to something else you said, which was this idea of connection. I think the idea of connection in this short was really strong. That we were set up with Louise' fear of loss. Obviously, she's experienced it, the wound of losing her son. I love that Hetty seems younger, and this is kind of a coming of age subplot of her saying, "No, I am old enough. I am going to join the fight." The person who's been doing the fighting does need me and does need my help, but such a fear from Louis of losing Hetty, and I think that transfers to like the great action scene where the blaster just buzzes her cheek, and you're feeling what Louis is feeling of this absolute fear loss of connection.
Mhm.
All of the dance imagery is beautiful, but to me that was like, okay, how can we take dance? Have you ever sat around wondering, how does Cirque du Soleil relate to the light and dark side of the Force?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
to me, it was that image of the dancers were a masters of working together with the tech people backstage
Mhm.
and working with that cloth, which is very much like,
Mhm.
to me, the Force. It was flowing, it was
Yeah,
organic, it was connected to all things in that space, and it made things that seemed impossible possible because it's all about connection.
I really like that idea of the Force as the material there. That's beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
think that connection idea is why the short had such a happy ending with just a blinking light of possibility, because it was the possibility
Yeah.
of what she had feared she lost, not just her son, but this idea of connection.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that in all aspects. I love that guy John down below. He was a great character. But the
Yeah.
connection to the purpose and all of them finding their stuff there. I love that this also having kind of the mother energy version of the Luke Vader Empire moment. It's a little
Mhm.
bit of a reverse energy there from Vader to mom here. Love that angle too.
Yeah, and just love the pulling him into a hug of like, you don't understand how special this moment is, but you will,
Mm-hmm.
and that faith is so
Yeah.
moving. Let's talk about any specific little favorite moments or beats. We'll try not to list every frame.
Yeah. Inside the cabaret theater, but when you're approaching it, you start with the stormtrooper vibe, see your scan docs, and then you go in and just it was effective, and it's a wonderful, weird Star Wars like design. It's the Moulin Rouge theater in Star Wars form, and I love that. But it just it was really effective, like you said, the backstage high up, all the things about that, just really great design.
Yeah, and to me, it had real connections to the Galaxy's Opera House and
Mhm.
the water ballet with the trailing cloth that we're seeing in Revenge of the Sith. So it felt like
Mhm.
it had some great prequel vibes. I loved that old movie title style logo plastered huge across the screen, which was,
Mm.
not only is this, a film about the power of dance, about the power of live performance. It's kind of a film about the power of film, because that's so filmic. That's
Mhm.
so like old movie kind
Mm.
of credits,
Yeah.
which I just love that. I also loved the to the ones we've lost, that they all said that.
Yes. I love that moment.
It's a beautiful moment. It would have been beautiful to me if it was like, this is a story about resistance fighters and they're going over the hill with the blasters.
Mhm.
But it's so connected to the reality of being a performer and pre-show rituals. And
Mm.
what's this particular show you're doing? What's the phrase that everybody says, or the shared joke that you say right before you go onto stage, right before you dive into this other reality of being in performance? So it really got me.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, this is I got to experience the band Shinedown. My friend Eric from the Shinedown. I got to go backstage, and I won't give the details with it, but they have that kind of ritual. We all like, if you
Mhm.
here, you had to get in the circle, and if you're here, you have to do this. And it was moving. It was moving. I love that you bring that up, and this being a story of art and what that's about, and how much it is so much of the soul and of those who've come before, or those who helped bring you here. It's great. It's a great pull.
Yeah, it was really powerful. Very enjoyable, but perhaps not as powerful. I did like the 3PO jewelry statue.
I want one of those.
Right?
No,
I'll buy more rings and necklaces just to put it on 3PO.
yeah, or I have one ring, the ring, not the one ring of power, but I have the ring for Grace and I. But like, so she can have that if she wants. But I would love it in the kitchen, like snacks. Like, what can you help me in the kitchen? Like, what can
Help yourselves to some 3PO Doritos.
yeah,
Yeah, just hanging there.
yeah,
That'd
yeah.
be great. There's just too many beats in the action. The shattering of the cane
Mhm,
that her son inherited from the awful ISB type who took him.
mhm,
Beautiful. But I think for me the best part was the explosion of the cloth as a weapon against the troopers, wrapping three of them and
mhm.
just chucking them. the entire everybody in that sequence of everybody in the theater coming together was like the magic of theater versus the Empire. With the way spotlights were used, the way the smoke machines were used, the little froggy guy with the pipe playing music to inspire her battle. Oh, be still my heart.
That was wonderful. And, and we saw in the trailer the dress reveal, right? Like that was part of the trailer. So there's those moments where you're like, well, I know that's coming, right? So I was like, oh, this is the one once it started, and it happened, and I still was taken aback by it. That's how great that moment was.
Yeah, so good. Any final thoughts on the spy dancer?
So one of the things I have experienced with the Vision stuff so far is not something you've experienced. I have not revisited them. I not for any super negative reason. It's just if I'm sitting down, it's not what I'm going to watch. I'll watch Rebels or I'll probably just watch Empire Dreams in parts again. That's what I watch. This was again for me specifically the first time we're like, oh, this is going to be in rotation. It really was effective. It really worked for me, and so kudos to the team on this one.
Awesome. Yeah, this is already the one that I've watched twice, and I might watch it again later today. We're going to take a quick break now, and we're going to talk about the last few shorts in Vision Season 2. Back in a moment. And we are back to continue our discussion of Vision Season 2, Part 2. We are up to the short, The Bandits of Golak. This is from the Studio 88 Pictures, based in India, developed by Melinda Dashind, written and directed by Ishan Shukla. Ken, what was your overall reaction to The Bandits of Golak?
Same thing again up top, where we got a lot about the story that I enjoyed. I loved the look, both culturally, and just, we got India, we got Star Wars, and we're going to put them together in a way that we've never seen before. And it really was vibrant to me. I loved it. And the colors and the bright colors of that culture, and then their designs, their clothing, their food, everything about it. Really, you just felt it. You felt it. And then the animation itself, the designs, the style, the feel, I really liked it. Like if you were to, again, this isn't the purpose for doing this, but if you were like, hey, they're going to do a Star Wars show, the next animation series is this style. For some reason, I really liked it. It reminded me of some of the like season 3 or 4 Clone Wars stuff. And that show grew into even something bigger style-wise. I don't know. For me, for some reason, there's just something I loved about that.
I really agree with you. Love the animation style. I loved how straightforward it was, that there was a ton of just like, that is straight Star Wars mixed with straight, to my understanding, yes, vibrant colors, community, foods, everything straight from the real world mixed with Star Wars was great. It was really fun to see so many recent Star Wars designs. I have no idea about the age of of any of these different creators, right? But you could see like, oh, well, you're going to get a lot of classic designs if animators and storytellers are told you can pull from anywhere. We got Aki Aki, we got Purge Troopers, we got a Credian, like Dewey from Andor, beautiful. A Kosian like Tara Sinube took my breath away.
I said, is that Tara Sinube's cousin? Like, who is it?
Yeah, it's just another a Tara who's doing a little better. A Kosian is Tara Sinube's species. Yeah, and I think this was the other one where I absolutely loved it. It was just that some beats felt familiar, whereas some of the others, I feel like the actual beats of nothing that we just talked about in the Spy Dancer was new Star Wars themes, right? Connection, hope, even the idea of a mask hiding your true identity. But it was told from the perspective of performers. So I think just the actual story beats of a child who has to hide their Jedi abilities being brought to someone who will also give them safety. An Inquisitor, we've been spending a lot of time in current canon Star Wars. So I love the visuals, love the ideas. The actual story beats felt like a little familiar.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a fair note. And as when you reach out in the world and say what moves you about Star Wars, I think you're going to get a lot of similar answers, and I think that's a good thing. I know you think that's a good thing too, but yeah, I know what you mean. Of there's a little bit of me going, oh, okay, yeah. I think I know where we're going. It just, that's why I gravitate towards the design and the other things around it too.
Yeah. And I do, I was affected by, this is the perspective of a culture that has dealt with the colonizers. And that was definitely present and powerful in the ideas. Just to be very clear, I'm just talking about literally the story beats. If it was removed of any visuals or any nuance, and it was just literally the story beats, that's what I'm responding to.
Yeah,
so let's talk about the ideas. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, it's their story to tell. And also, hey, check out our conversation about Temple of Doom.
Exactly. And follow it up with this and other storytelling from the actual culture. Let's talk about the ideas. What did you think was most vibrant in terms of the ideas of this piece? What was at stake?
So this big thing of purpose, the bigger thing perhaps of letting go. This is a truly mythical tale to do all that. And you know, from my perspective a little bit, the hero of the story is the brother Jaruk, who has no special powers, but he's going to do what he can to protect her. He's going to pretend to steal all those wonderful candies. Oh, I feel him there. And all of this out of protection, out of survival, and all to help his sister. But in the end of the day, he helps achieve her higher purpose, and she's a hero as well. And I think she's going to be a hero in other stories, right? But to see it a lot through his perspective, really drove home that time-honored Star Wars theme of letting go.
Yeah, no, I really like that idea, and I really like that. In some ways, obviously, it's both of their journey, but some of the conflict is really put on him of how am I going to get her to safety? The feeling of like everything in me is dedicated only to her safety, and knowing how dangerous this world is for her. I think the idea that really resonated with me, and it felt like a theme that was drawn out and underlined in a way that made this unique compared to some of the familiarity of the story beats, is this idea of best phrase I could come up with it for it is what gets you through of, all right, you, similar to some of the other stories that we're talking about, this oppression is not going to end in a day. You're dealing with a large and challenging enemy, and you're going to be in this fight for a long time. So how do you survive it? And I felt like it highlighted every little moment of joy was like a tool in the kit. There was the kindness of Sharuk to Ronnie, and just that connection and that shared joy between the two of them. Ronnie's desire to really be connected to that flute that seemed like maybe the last surviving part of her city, village, her family, her tradition that's being wiped out. And then offering it to the brother at the end, but the flute as connection to tradition. I love that so much of this was just about the simple joy of sweets as a symbol of happiness, of childhood, but also of culture. Food is such a huge and important part of culture. It was like, here's something that the Empire hasn't stomped out yet. They haven't gone, they haven't seen I believe the candy was called Lebby. They haven't seen the Lebby factories as a threat yet. They will eventually because it's culture. But that was important. And the biggest thing to me was one of the ideas of what gets you through is the idea that narrative gets you through, that story gets you through. We talked about this a lot with the Minds of Mandalore episode of season 3 of Mandalorian. This idea that it's almost meta sometimes when Star Wars tells a story about the idea that stories matter. And that was so huge to me that Shruk and Ronnie find such strength in casting themselves as the heroes of a fantasy story of, we have to do something really hard, really terrifying, with only a small chance of partial victory. But if we frame it in this fun rhyme about bandits who want candy and wonder, that gives us the strength to get through. that was by far like the winner of this short to me. It was so powerful that just a little rhyming poem can give you the strength to get through horror.
Yeah. I love that. I love what you're saying, and I love pulling out into silly little real world things. This is what we do in our house. One of our dogs, Baxter, our older 17-year-old Chihuahua, he has one little pink toe bean, and it's the cutest little thing. And a lot of times, Grace and I, if we're going through stuff, or she's going into some appointment that's stressful, or I got a job interview, we'll just text each other pink toe bean, which just means focus on that cute little bit of joy in our life. Focus on that little energy, and all the darkness around, all the trials around. They'll still be there, but you know who you are. You know who your connection. You know where your home is, right? You know where your home can be something that's on the move sometimes. I love what you're saying, because that was one of my favorite moments, the little singing and the hand moves and everything. Real powerful stuff there, and they really found the core of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great example. Sarah and I have a thing that we text one another that I haven't asked her permission to share, so I'm not going to. Nothing dirty. But there's also that element of casting yourself. They cast themselves as bandits. So for me, it's that same thing of like, maybe I'm going to a party where I only know 2 people, and I'm kind of stressed, and it helps to be like, I am a Jedi, like my father before me. And it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah, sure.
This idea that you are a Jedi, but like, it's a fear. And casting myself in my mind is a cool action monk with a laser sword helps me get past that fear. They know they are not bandits, right?
Right.
But casting themselves as the heroes of this little narrative helps them push past fear. And that's so great.
Yeah. I really agree with that. Absolutely.
I also like that, bandits being in the title, actual bandits popping up, that this is a great subversion of American Westerns. I'm sure many other stories, but a train ride through the country that is filled with bandits, raiders, scary people. And like none of those scary bandits in the hills are the rebels fighting for their people in their land.
Yep. No, I absolutely love that. This is one of those second viewings when I was like, "What? It's the Bandits of I got it." And I Leo DiCaprio the screen, and that train, and looking up, and the second conductor kind of looking up with fear at someone, at a group that's probably actually the heroes, and how it combines with the ending. The bandits got to go. Love it. Emotional. Love it.
Yeah. And in terms of obviously, there was so much to celebrate about the positives of culture with the candy and the flute in the story, in the community that they find. But I think there was a lot of that was a lot of defiance of light in the darkness of how much of this was about hiding of identity. About this is what it is to be invaded, oppressed, colonized, is the attempt to drive out identity. Ronnie struggles to hide herself. It's natural for her. I love that her force powers just seem to kind of explode out of her. Like, I didn't even really mean to float this. It's just so natural that I do. It's just an extension of who I am. The idea that the flute is a risk. The way the Jedi protector is having to hide herself and her lightsabers in the pool. Like, everything is hidden, and I think that's powerful.
Indeed.
Any favorite moments of comedy or action or a shot or anything like that in this one?
There's a moment early on where Ronnie's talking to Sharuk, and she says, "What do they even want?" And I just thought, it works on a lot of levels. It's sad, she doesn't know fully, but also just to look at the stormtroopers, because later on there's a little beat of like, all this for sweets. And it's like, what do you even want? Tell me. Because I don't think you even know sometimes these forces, these oppressive forces, on big scale and small. Like, what do you want? What are you trying to say here? I thought that was great.
I love that you pull that out. That perspective of Ronnie, who is clearly traumatized but still connecting to light, and just being like, so much burning and destruction. Why is really powerful.
Yeah. So a little moment there.
Yeah. Go ahead. More moments.
From there, I transitioned quickly into Hey, is that Terrace Anube's cousin? It was around the same.
Yeah, for me, I was just there's a ton of this that I loved, but hey, you know what? That Cassian cousin of Terrace Anube, that was a prophecy that we would see not just a lightsaber cane, like
Yes.
Terrace Anube has, but a bleeping double lightsaber cane.
Yes.
That I will watch this one at least 3 more times just for the double lightsaber cane moment.
Totally.
That was so cool. And then the other beat that I wrote down was the pool moment with the Jedi symbol. Even though some of these beats feel like, yep, we're seeing this kind of storytelling. That image of it being hidden, that kind of different Force image of just the water floating.
Yeah.
And for now, the Jedi symbol has to be submerged, but it's there and you can't kill it. Oh man, that got me.
Yeah, really love it. Water is so powerful in stories and so much of our breakdowns, right? We talk about it a lot. It's some of the things you pulled out so wonderfully from the Book of Boba Fett early on. And here it is to hide the path forward, water being this powerful thing.
Yeah. The final moment for me is I just loved the joy of them exchanging that little story, that little rhyme, that animation that so accurately captured the emotion. It felt like there was almost nothing heightened about it. It was just actual sibling joking joy to perfection. Can I be the bandit chief in pursuit of sweets and plunder? The bandits ride for feast and wonder. Just beautiful.
Yeah, no, with you on that. Love that.
All right. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next one?
The only thing I'll say is the design of the Inquisitor was impeccable. Everything about him was just wonderful in this villainous way. Loved the design, loved the detail. Could this Inquisitor show up in a comic book or video game? I hope so. I'd be happy. I love that.
You're right. The Inquisitor design was great, and it was again a great melding of Star Wars images with different interpretations of those images.
Indeed.
Awesome. Let's move on then to episode 8, The Pit. This was a unique one. This one is from Lucasfilm Limited in conjunction with the studio Dart Shatayo. I apologize. I also did not have time to look up the pronunciation there. Written and directed by Leandra Thomas. I think that story has been shared, and it sounds like you watch more of it, that he is a Lucasfilm employee. And then co-directed by Justin Ridge. So what was your overall reaction to this one, and any insights from the behind-the-scenes feature you watched?
Yeah, definitely recommend checking it out. He's Leandre is like a 10-year employee of Lucasfilm and has a specific job, a keeper of some sort of videos and still images, works in that kind of department, and had this story idea and took it down the hall, and that sounds like it's easy. That doesn't happen a lot. Right? No matter what company you work for, this is what you do. This is what your job is. And this is how we interact and engage with you on it. And like John Knoll in the story of Rogue One, I think a lot of people heard that story. This story was able to happen. So it's inspiring on many levels. And it goes all the way up to the top with Kathleen Kennedy going, this is great. Let's do it. And they found a home for it. It wasn't necessarily pitched as visions. They found a home for it here. So highly recommend. Hear it from them themselves in the short, in the extra features. And I loved it. And I my overall reaction to this one, we'll get into it. This was perfectly timed and awkwardly timed with a lot of real world things going on right now, things that Disney is involved in. But yeah, so moving, epic feel, all those good things, all those buzzwords present in this story.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to watch the behind the scenes, but I'm definitely going to make time for that. And yeah, I don't think that Lucasfilm is just an open door to. Do you write some code for the Star Wars app? Well, come on into Kathleen Kennedy's office. So this is an achievement, and I'm very happy for it because I think it's really powerful. I really love this one. Like Spy Dancer, I felt like this was one that got into some core Star Wars themes, but in terms of the plot and the setup, came at it from a slightly different way. I was really moved by the fact that it was deep, heartfelt, core Star Wars ideas, but also tied directly and explicitly and unignorably to the real world. For me, obviously, it was impossible to ignore what was going on with the characters who were forced to dig. There were obviously people of all kinds stuck in the titular pit, but the fact that the main characters were black, it was for me unignorable that this is about the black experience. But also, and I think this is maybe one of the places you're going, this is also about the general working class experience. This is the idea that you can see being represented in discussions of social justice, that issues of race and issues of economic and social class are tied together. That the need for better things in life these ideas are tied together. This sort of this struggle that the people who hold the wealth and the power have made a lot of people trapped in a metaphorical pit.
Yeah.
Can we climb out? The note I couldn't stop myself writing down, and I want to hear your thoughts about it. This is why there are unions. This is a literal physical picture of wealth not trickling down. The wealthy people take it and then leave everybody else in a pit. How did you feel about that?
This is about me and my fight with credit scores, about why they exist. Even when they're good, they're a lie. Yes, you're absolutely right about everything. I mean, this is our interpretation of it, but you don't need to watch the behind the scenes footage on this to really pull what's going on here and pull it in different directions. Without a doubt, this is a story conceived and written and created and produced post 2020. What's going on, both like you talked directly about the black experience, and that's very clear. Also very clear, lower labor class sinking themselves as they build the upper class. That time-lapse shot of the city building while the pit goes down. Tides, rising and lowering in opposite directions at the same time. You can't deny it. And we are recording this in the midst of a writer strike, and not comparing writers to any other oppressed groups or class throughout history, by the way. If anyone wants to take those to streams, I'm just saying what's going. The writer strike is a labor fight that we all should be plugged into, because this is truly one of those it could happen to you type situations, and you're watching studios report record profits while the folks that literally generate the ideas at the first level are sinking deeper and deeper, can't afford to survive. In their chosen fields. So not to get so real world with it, but it was like I said, perfectly and oddly and awkwardly timed. You couldn't turn away from that side.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I liked that it was. I liked that it was. You and I talk about these things all these time, and I think ideas like this are all over Star Wars. But this one was you can't look away from it in a similar way to Andor, and I think that's good.
Yes. And I think it's weird. We try to address it in that news episode. There's always a tension between us enjoying the art in this wonderful, crazy Star Wars saga put out by some of the largest companies in the world. It's always going to be like that. I wish we all could be independent artists. Hell, I wish we all could be George Lucas, who used the system to make himself some money and then spread it all around with his own independent stories, right? Like, I wish. But even then, he still needed Fox to get it out to the world. It's just the situation we're in. So it's hard to ignore the tensions, but the tensions are part of the situation.
Yeah, and I would rather have these stories told, and I would rather have them broadcast to a large audience where they might help people and they might inform people. Yeah. So let's talk about the ideas at stake. We got into it a little bit with the big picture, but what did you feel was the big idea? What was at stake in this story?
Yeah, I apologize. I jumped ahead on that. I was definitely
no. I did too. we both jumped. Yeah, we were
eager to climb out of this pit. Yeah, the what's going on with the class system here, the labor, all that there. But I'll move beyond that. We can come back to it. This idea of the inner light was mentioned, right? And everyone has this inner light, and you got to find the inner light and look for the light and all those kind of things. Big Star Wars things. I took it. I went in this direction of because you get Cedric Yarborough playing the older prisoner who's just kind of buried in this cycle and loss of hope, and everyone kind of needs to find that. But this hope that the reality of your situation, your struggle, if you get it out there, you get your voice out there, you climb out of the pit and tell everyone we're all struggling down here. Can that reality connect with what I do believe is people's inner light? I do believe that exists. Everyone has an inner light, says this episode. Sometimes people forget this. So don't be afraid to use your voice to remind them of what you're going through, because then hopefully empathy and understanding can emerge, and then empathy and understanding matter. The citizens don't listen when he climbs out and he goes, "Hey, can I have your?" They don't listen. We don't connect with that until we kind of see it. Right? That's that thing we always talk about. There's so many tragedies in the world. Until one happens to you, you might not be plugged in. And that's just, unfortunately, sometimes the nature of it. Can you move past that? And I thought this was about bringing your situation, bringing your plight, bringing your voice out to tell people, can you help? Because this is what's going on. I thought that was very Star Warsy, very much Star Wars.
Yeah, I really agree. I think it was about one of the core Star Wars ideas, which is hope. We've described just the absolute basics of Star Wars is it's about hope versus fear.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly if you just say hope, because it can be overused.
Yeah,
it can start to sound like, is this just a greeting card? We just say hope and then everything is fine.
Yeah,
I feel like this is a story that addresses exactly that. It addresses how incredibly difficult it is to hold on to hope. That hope is worth holding on to, even if it takes multiple steps to get to where you're trying to go. I think this idea that the main character Crux has hope, but all of the reasons that he should lose it are presented to us. That in order to hold on to hope and to try to make a difference, physical hardship must be endured and overcome. The however long in that horrific montage, great art but horrific in meaning montage, however long that went on, all of the actual digging, the physical labor, and then the great risk in physical hardship of climbing the wall. I love that even though he was certain it needed to be done and certain it could be done, that there were still tears in his eyes from the physical pain of holding on to the wall and holding on to the hope. That the thing about inner light is quite clear in terms of just sort of like the meaning of the piece, that what he tells Libby, that all people have an inner light. The only question is being whether they will listen to it or not. That's huge, right? That's sort of like, people can have the attitude like, that's just naive. That's a nice idea. But like this old man, I love that the older man is in this, who eventually does lift his head up and let himself hope again. But just by the picture of this person being older, he's been through this, and that older man has met a lot of people who have shown zero evidence of having inner light. That he's experienced the cruelty and understandably losing hope. But this is the great power of Crux of like, I understand that it's really easy to lose hope, and I understand you did, but I'm going to keep fighting for it. And I think the fact that you're saying that it isn't easy, that some people in the city sound kind of concerned, but it takes even more hope of everybody coming together and yelling out to make it happen, is yet another picture of how hard it is to hold on to hope. And I think most powerfully, the fact that Crux is killed. It wasn't, I climbed and I shouted hope and everything's great. He died brutally. But his hope, his lesson, is transferred to Livy, to the next generation. And to me, it creates this really honest but really hard story of, hope isn't just a magic word that we say and poof, everything's better. It's what we use to keep going, to slowly make things better, piece by piece, sometimes generation by generation. And that is not to say that we shouldn't sometimes demand change now, but that sometimes it takes piece by piece, and that I was moved by the idea that Crux's sacrifice was not in vain. It created progress and hope for the next generation to see that crystal light up.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just, and you said something that I really loved. It was like when he does get to the city, like they don't like brush him off. There's like, yeah, that doesn't sound good. Let's carry on. There's like, and I thought that was, unfortunately, that's the thing I talk about. That's very real, right? Yeah. I don't know if I like that. That tweet didn't make me happy. Anyways, here's a puppy. Like, and you got, and that's sometimes how you survive and how we process it. I don't want anyone to feel bad if you look at a puppy today online. Like, it makes you smile.
No,
you know what I mean? Like, and that's why a larger collection of voices do need to come together sometimes. Unfortunately, again, but yeah, that's the way it works. And I thought that was played out really well. And the generational slide down effect, like you're talking about, was powerful. And the journey continues.
Yeah. And I just felt it from, some friends I have sometimes, certainly just online, like, when it gets to be election season and I want to promote voting.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'm just going to get a response of, it doesn't matter. It won't make any difference. This speaks to me of like, it does matter.
Yeah.
Mathematically, it really does. I also I really agree with you about the picture of wealth. The people who make the wealth not having any part in it. Crux being able to make that explicit as he stands in Crystal City in front of an image of what he dug up with his hands. Really powerful. But I also like that that what felt fresh in this is that picture that this awful situation of these people being trapped in the real and metaphorical pit is born out of direct cruelty and abuse from the Empire. But it's also born out of ignorance and apathy, which is, I think, is what you're talking about of like, when he gets to the city, they don't realize that this is happening. And that's like the hope of this episode. When they find out that children have been left in a pit to starve, are they going to do anything? Are they going to care? Are they going to respond to that? Is that inner light there? Or are they going to find a reason to turn it off of like, well, I bet they did something to deserve that,
Yes, I think that's a very valuable point, and I think the short does a great job of playing this out. How intentioned, I don't know, but it's so present that I got to believe it was a choice of again, the citizens probably just move there, right? They don't, like you said, they don't even know, and that's often the case in life. You just don't know, and then information, plights, stories, histories come to light, and it's not to say that you got to go. Like even jumping ahead, like even when the citizens come together, they take them back to the city. And I'm not suggesting that now everyone in that pit's now rich and live in the city and gets to enjoy everything equally. But there was a vibe of like, no, we're the city is here. We're still here. We are who we are. But how can we now then help your plight and maybe stop for future pits happening? Like it's not asking you to erase yourself or your own history when you're paying attention to someone else's story. And I thought that played out on the streets of the city a little bit.
No, I really agree, and I think that was a picture of it too. Of the changes happen because of Crux's faith in the idea that people do have an inner light and his sacrifice. But then it does take the power of the people to break the systems of injustice. I think one of the most we've seen this image now is that lineup of stormtroopers saying, "You can't help these people. You can't even look here. You can't go here." And having the power of the people say, "We can, we can, and we will address this injustice."
And the troopers just pack up and leave, right? Pack up and leave. Yeah.
Yep. Well, final thing for me in terms of like the ideas, I think this idea that's often present in Star Wars about nature was present. I really like that Crux's climb was helped by the creatures who naturally live there and burrow little holes. That last shot of Livy awakening the crystal, I think was a reminder of, even though those have become a commodity and a resource that the Empire is trying to control, they are of nature and they belong to everyone. The a lot of this short, because it is so direct and explicit, reminded me of Andor, and the whole thing made me think about Nemec's quote about oppression not being natural, and that even like the nature of the Kyber crystals, like, yeah, we don't want to be owned by the Empire.
Yeah. No, I love the little lizard coming out and helping them. I put down the forces in nature. The light is ever present, even in places where you don't suspect it or don't look for it.
Yeah, really powerful stuff. Did you have any just favorite moments of a shot, a line, action, comedy, anything?
There was one moment here where the diggers reach the end, and then they say that, and they go to the commander. They've reached the end. They're finished, and they go, "Well done, Commander." Really drove home the point of what did you do? You stood up there and forced them to dig, electrocuted them. They didn't. But well done, sir. Well done. Here's your CEO bonus.
I would encourage people to, if they are not already inundated with this truth, to look up how the current owner of Twitter got his generational wealth. That resonated pretty hard with me. Well done, Commander. Well done, alleged genius. Just the line. It's very clear but very powerful phrasing. They'll do the right thing if they follow their light. In that idea of, we all have the capacity for empathy. Will we act on it? Is really powerful. It was when Crux is up on that platform. There's some Orabesh that spells out Crystal City. So I really liked that. Not only is there an image of the Kyber crystal, but that's named Crystal City. So they are aware. Such a powerful idea that almost everywhere we live, there's a reason. There's an industry, and sometimes we're real connected to it, and sometimes it's kind of lost to history. So that was great to see. And we already talked about it. The montage of the city being built is beautiful animation in painful truth. Yeah.
Well said.
All right. Any other thoughts before we move on to the final short?
No. Great stuff. Great stuff. I by the way, when this one ended, when the citizens pulled back, I sighed. I said, "Oh man, we all need a win," and then we got a win, so to speak. So ready for the
no, it was really, really good, really powerful. Moving on to Au's song. This is by the studio Triggerfish, South Africa, and Wikipedia says that there is an outlet in Galway, Ireland as well. Directed by Daniel Clark and Nadia Darius. Written by Nadia Darius, Daniel Clark, and Julia Smutsloa. Again, apologies on some of the pronunciation. What was your overall reaction to this one, Ken?
Oh, this one, we got the citizens in the pit. They come back with the ships, and we got to win. But I needed something like this. This is well put together volume. I think they knew what they were doing when they ended with this one. And just from the designs to the message to the joy, and it's got all the big things in it, without a doubt, a lot of Star Wars themes. But I liked that even though we had red crystals, we didn't have a Sith coming to town. Doesn't mean I don't like any other things. We didn't have someone turning. We didn't have any of that. We just had, we had a tale of hope, but purpose, your voice, all that kind of stuff we'll talk about in the big themes. And it just hit me down to the little fuzz on the little CGI design character there.
Yeah, this one was a balm. I can see why they put it at the end. I absolutely love this one, and I felt like I needed it. This was like, I don't even take baths, but this is like taking bath after a long day. To be clear, I take showers. I do cleaner myself. But it just felt so purifying. I've mentioned this before. I haven't been caught up in Legend of Zelda games in a while, but back in the day, you would run across an area that was corrupted and everything was rotting, and then you would beat the dungeon in that area, and you'd come out and everything was peaceful and happy and flowers and shining, and is such a beautiful feeling. This whole thing felt to me like a village after you've defeated the dungeon in Legend of Zelda. I think the fact that the animation, the characters were this sort of felt toy, which speaks to beauty and fun and youth, and the fact that it was set in an era of healing. The ton of kyber crystals in season 2 of Vision. There's a
Yeah,
ton
yeah.
of Sith, a ton of the presence of corruption. But I love that this was just set generations after the war, and they're still dealing with the pollution. But that this whole thing was in an era of healing was a really nice change of pace.
I love that. I think you're absolutely right about that.
So what did you feel was at stake? What was this one about for you?
Definitely, the sharing your voice thing's quite literal here, but I think that works. There's a great thing about we all have our places, we all have our purpose. And one of the things I liked is Al's father is meant to mind the Khyber. And this short film doesn't necessarily paint a completely desolate picture of oppression versus, like, say, the pit. This is his job. This is where he is. But there's some joy there. And he keeps her around because this is a bit of protection going on. I just want you to be safe, he says. So that's followed up with one of my favorite little shots of when they're speeding into town and she leans into her father's back as they speed into town, feeling that protection, feeling that warmth. And so even though in a franchise that deals with, attachments and dangers of that, and now there's not bad, but went too far. And this played with it in a different way, like you said, a joyful way. And all that kind of going to the sharing your voice. And then there's a weight and responsibility. This is even something the creators said, to be clear, that comes with stepping forward. When you step forward and find your purpose, that's just the first part of it. Now you got to go forward if you get the chance. And there's a big weight to that.
Oh, that's a great insight. I agree with everything you're saying. I really thought this was a coming of age story, in a very classic Star Wars way. But it was like this whole short was like a great take on the dinner table conversation in A New Hope with Luke and Owen and Beru. Of, there's nothing wrong with being a farmer. That's just not who Luke is. And that fear of what will happen to him if he goes out and really reaches his potential versus what will happen to him if he stays here. All that stuff, what we've been talking about that we think is probably at stake in Skeleton Crew. We'll find out of that coming of age story of, in order to get to the wonder, in order to get to the potential of who you can be, you got to pass through the terror. We also talk a lot about how Star Wars wrestles with ideas of fear, and sometimes fear is irrational fear of something bad that could happen. Anakin is just so consumed with the possibility of, what if anything happens to anybody I love? Gets the specific vision of Padme, but still it's just a vision. That sort of irrational fear of loss versus an extremely understandable, rational concern about a concrete danger. And I really like that the father is not a baddie. He's not even as grumpy as Owen. He has an understandable, rational concern about a very dangerous thing. The crystals are dangerous. Mining is dangerous. The connection between his daughter and the crystals are potentially something that could hurt her and hurt other people. I love that we see the burn mark on his hand. It's but then the push and pull of the Jedi going, well, don't resist your song, don't resist the call, and having this great story acted out where Ahu needs to push past the fear, even the concern, and prove herself to find out what she is truly capable of. It took a risk to prove what she is truly capable of. And I think I just really felt that powerfully too. I love that this story wasn't just one crystal spoke to her, but she could do that. Holy bleep. You did the work of hundreds of Jedi. You did the work that this Jedi at the beginning told us, I'm not sure if even I can fix this one. These are deeply corrupted. And you did it to 2 mountains worth of just that level of, holy bleep, you did something extremely important. I loved the scale of that because it made me think of that truth of fear and concern are always there. People will always tell you no and don't, and they're only sometimes right.
Only sometimes right. It's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Well said on that.
And I really like the ideas that you're talking about as well about, what is your calling? And I like that we had that in the opening crawl of like, this isn't something, this is something that the culture on, I believe, Korba values. This is something her father values. This is his calling to mine the crystals. And that how that ties to the literal idea of listening to her calling and her song, and then it even translates into the great Star Wars debate about is it cool that that the Jedi take kids away? I love that this Jedi says take 2 weeks to think about it, so it's not now or never, kid. In that great line of we cannot choose where our calling takes us, only whether or not to answer.
I think you're absolutely right on that. And maybe we'll find out that Plo Koon gave Ahsoka a week or so to think about it. Maybe we'll find that out. And maybe some YouTube video essays will calm down.
Yeah, but we know the elders of Ahsoka's village are already like, yeah, it took you longer enough to find her. We've known that Ahsoka has connection to the Force, which we value. So get on it, Plo Koon. Yeah, great stuff. Any other? That was the question I wanted to ask you. So it's incredibly important tradition to the people of Korba that they are miners. Do you think that they're still going to mine all those Kyber? It's just way easier now because they're not evil Kyber that hates them.
No, but I think that's part of what I loved about that's again with her father. I love what you said about Uncle Owen. New Hope wasn't saying farmers are bad or farming is not needed. It wasn't Luke's calling, and Luke has to find that out. Beru kind of figured it out, and Owen needs to understand it. That plays out a lot in real world ways, and I just said there's something I really loved about her dad's like, this is needed as well, and I think now they get to continue that, and now get to play little space checkers, a little. With a more of a easy heart because they know that maybe they're not going to get killed when they go into those mining caves.
It is this really great fantasy of, what if you come from a mining tradition, which is very dangerous, and you can in an instant make it much safer and more fun. And the mining tradition is still there. I'm fascinated. I almost want to see a sequel to this one. Did you have favorite beats, comedy shots?
There's a great shot of when I was singing and the red and blue meet, beautiful painting that belongs on a wall, and just really highlighting her purpose, changing the crystals. I love that. I love that moment.
Yeah, I love that this one had opening text. It wasn't a scroll, but it was very much in the tradition of the scroll, and it gave us that important context that this is an era of healing, and this is a long time generational calling of the people of Korba to mine these crystals. I'm with you. You already mentioned it too, but I love the miners playing the board game. I don't know if it was Dejarik with carved pieces, but and one of them going, oh.
Love the design of the city overall. Beautiful stuff. Just you felt it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that one shot of them, the city's in the distance and they're going around the curve and you're kind of, you're riding with them. That was a great shot. In terms of like looking at visions and going, well, canon, not canon, all that stuff, I would deeply love this Jedi to leap directly into canon. The design of this Jedi was just so Jedi-like, but so different and cool. I adored it.
With you on that. So much of this entire series, but this one, just love the aesthetic.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to try to get out of here under 2 hours. There's just so much to talk about with all these shorts. Ultimately, Ken, what did you get out of seeing these different cultural takes on Star Wars? Visions Volume 1, we obviously talked about, greatly value to have Japanese culture and storytelling so influence Star Wars. It was absolutely wonderful to have all of these Japanese creators comment on Star Wars. Now it's this different journey where it's all sorts of different cultures. What ultimately did you get out of that?
I think it was the right decision to start Volume 1 as they did. And I remember when the announcement for Volume 2 came out and this is what they were doing. I had a little bit of not a negative reaction, but it's like, okay. I don't know. Maybe does that seem fair? Volume 1 is like, I don't know. But I'm just absolutely moved by the passion. And these stories were bursting out of the creators. And it almost like that, when we find when we have a Star Wars hat on or a pin on your jacket, and you find that one person, even as popular as Star Wars was and will continue to be, but that you find that one person on the tram or in the bar or the restaurant who's like, oh, hey, and they're just waiting for you, and you're waiting for them to talk about it. This is kind of what I felt with the creators of finally. They got asked, what do you think about Star Wars? And they were like, here's what I think about Star Wars. And it's interesting that when you ask a bunch of filmmakers and artists and creators from around the world to do something inspired by Star Wars, there's designs, there's aesthetics, there's stormtroopers, there's tech, there's lightsabers, there's crystals. Yep. But it's the themes that emerge more than anything else, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're telling stories. So yeah, there's going to be themes to these stories, but that's what's universal. How you like your stormtrooper armor, or how you like your blasters or your that can change. It's very personal, but the themes truly, truly universal, and that's what I took from it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that it is important for us as humans to celebrate what is different. I think that it's great that each individual person and each individual culture is different, but then within that difference, what is universal? And I think that's so powerful to be celebrated here, because I think in some of these shorts I perceive the history of this specific culture. I perceive the foods, the clothing, the landscapes, things that are different. But then things that are absolutely the same. And to see what people gravitate toward from the fun, cool side of Star Wars, of like you're talking about, the armor, the design, the crystals, but then what are the thematic ideas? And in particular, a couple of them being like, this idea is always played with in Star Wars. What is our take on it? What do we think is the answer to the question that's raised by this theme? Is great. But then I think it is really powerful to look at stories told around the world, and what are the things that pop up again and again in this season of Visions. Lots of Sith. yeah. Lots of oppression. Lots of terrible losses. There are huge amounts of awful tragedy in these stories, but they're all stories of people still persevering, often through connection of family, often through preservation of culture, often through preservation of hope, often through preservation of fighting for the future. And you take a step forward, but you're really helping the next generation. The starkness of how much it draws out that Star Wars is a story about the light surviving and even thriving in opposition to crushing darkness. That was powerful. That all around the world, people wanted to tell stories of people pushing back and succeeding against oppression.
Very universal, you would think, huh? Yeah, there it was. Yeah.
Yep. Last thing I want to call out is this season had a lot of different visions of women with power. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. I don't want to belabor it, but even in the last couple of days, I've decided to, against Yoda's advice in Revenge of the Sith, if you look into the Twitter replies, only pain will you find. I've done it a couple times because I just wanted to remind myself that it's there, and it's Star Wars, it's Indiana Jones, it's Marvel stuff, it's real life stuff, and maybe they're bots, who knows why, but you know what? Sexism is real. It's still here. It's powerful and upsetting, and I love seeing something like Visions that is just saying like, yeah, you can scream and you can rant and you can create fake Twitter accounts to harass people, but these stories aren't stopping.
Yeah,
here's endless, beautiful stories of women with power. This is here, and if you don't like it, then you will be alone in your rage because we're moving forward.
Yeah, you cannot stop change. The change is already always happening. It's only a matter of when you either adjust or you leave. Is how I kind of look at it. Sometimes you go into the replies to be reminded of that. Unfortunately, yep, I'm with you. These characters fully formed in wonderful positions of all ages and all ranges. But the mother energy was strong too. When we've talked often, especially with Jennifer, that Star Wars has gotten better and better. Always needs to continue to change and grow. But the father energy, the father issues have always been strong in Star Wars, and always will, and always should. It's part of this. But this one really kind of stepped up that kind of look at the mother side of Star Wars.
Yeah. Yep. The mother side and the family side and all sorts of sides, but definitely some great Star Wars moms. Do you have any hopes for Vision Season 3?
Two things. First thing is no notes. Keep going. I really mean that. They have a good handle of it. I think it's important. I think it's Lucasfilm and all the people behind it. I know James Wa's often front and center on a lot of the press tour and stuff. I think they got a handle on it, on why, and there's a little bit of a responsibility of with this big giant thing, and there's always money to be made, profits to be found, all those kind of things. This is a business. I get it, but I think there's a real warm intention behind this series, and why I think it should and will continue to go. It's Star Wars going. We understand we're Star Wars, and we understand all around the world. People engage with us, so let's try to find ways to directly engage back with it.
Yeah, well said. I agree with you. I hope that there's just a continued expansion of cultures involved. I know there is a business side, but if that even means some even smaller animation houses getting a leg up, getting exposure, getting a budget they might not already always have access to, that would be great. I also wouldn't be against a season that is a mix of brand new stories and ideas and one or two continuations of existing ones.
That was my second note of I wouldn't mind a season with some follow-up films from the first two volumes, because I think that some of these stories, all of them done so well, but there's some specific ones that I'm like, ooh, but what's next?
Yeah, exactly. All right. That is our big look at Visions Season 2. Ken, where can people find us?
Hey, you can find us on Twitter at ForceCenter Pod. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. We're on Instagram and YouTube as well. We are on Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast, and more. Just search. You'll find us merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can support us directly. I'm at Ken Napzok and KenNapzok.com. Joseph, where are you at? And take us home.
Yeah, you can find me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Mastodon, TikTok, all kinds of places under the handle at Joseph Scrimshaw on all of them. If you are interested in supporting some art, I have a Kickstarter running for a short horror film that's about the intersection between horror and comedy and fandom and all sorts of things. It's called The Nightmare Adorable. Ken has kindly agreed to play a role in it. We are getting, I believe when this episode released, we'll be getting close to funded, and we'll be having some stretch goals announced very, very soon. So if you're interested in helping us out, just go to Kickstarter and search for Joseph Scrimshaw there as well. Thank you, everyone, for listening. So for myself, for Ken, for the fictional, theatrical, but Parisian-like dancer stage, this has been ForceCenter.